Hello, everybody. This is Thomas speaking, and we said we wanted to make this very authentic. So I'm live on air out of my not so fancy hotel room, actually. I want to introduce you to our minimum viable podcast, the MVP. Yes, sir, it's on air, and I'm happy that we made it. We just finished our first episode. Um, I'm hosting it together with my colleagues Charles Nodin and Daniel Radke from Venture Bakery. And we're gonna discuss the latest news, the latest hype around technology, around AI, around quantum computing. I hope you enjoy it. And hopefully you can get some insights from people who are actually practicing these topics on a daily basis. So enjoy, let me know what you think about it, and see ya in the comments.
What do we have today? At the agenda, I think two topics. First, maybe a little talk on QC with latest news, a bit of mixed signal recently, right?
Right.
Sandbox TQ raised $500 million. And at the same time, there's also a lot of horror stories about QC startups that can't get funding with the latest freeze. And then, of course, the topic everyone loves and enjoy, generative AI. There's been so much written, talked about, and so on about it. But we're still going to add our voice to the chorus of billions of voice that already talk about the topic and try to say something, maybe smarter. I don't know, but at least say something. Okay, so QC. What do you think? Like overall, like is QC a scam? I think that's the big question.
That's a good question. Is QC a scam? I think it's a tough one because on the one hand, you have lots of publications, the academics, lots of research coming into it, lots of also money flowing into it. You've got lots of noise, like lots of publications, academic interest, money flowing into it. But it's tough to separate right now because you're kind of looking for the use cases, right? You're kind of like you're looking for the applications and you're not really seeing them right now. So I'm not sure about. I think I believe in it. I think there will be something like in. I don't want to put a year on it. Like I don't want to say 10 years because everyone keeps saying 10 years, but there will be I believe 100% there will be a use for it, but just right now it's tough. It's tough to find use cases.
I have a concrete question to you, Daniel, concerning this point, because what in your opinion is the actual problem? Is this situation due to first of all poor hardware performance or level numbers of qubits in particular, or secondly, do you think that the number of use cases is that low because the access to QC is difficult at the moment?
Yeah,
You know where I'm coming
it's
from?
a good. Yeah. I know where exactly where you're coming from, and I mean the access. I think
But
both
tell me,
are.
it's a combination of both.
I think it's a combination, but the first one is obviously the bigger one, and that like the bigger problem. I mean, access you can fix access. Honestly, you can fix that. I mean, but if you have a problem with the tech, so hardware, right, the tech itself, then that's another problem. You really got to do research and everything. And I think, I mean, the size of the QCs is obviously too small, and we have too much noise. So there's still a lot more work to be done here. And I think the problem is that we kind of, and I mean, that's the classic hype cycle, right? We over like in general, QC, they overextended themselves. So we've seen like when was it, 2019 by Google, this supremacy thingy. They published their paper and they were like, oh, we have quantum supremacy. And I mean, really quickly, people like kind of saw through it, right, and saw that this is really like a very, very, very specific experiment with about like random numbers and stuff, and it's kind of like bullshit, basically, to be frank, right? So and that was 2019. So it's been a few years, and now we're sitting here, and it's we still don't have the application. So obviously the QCs are growing in terms of qubits, and in general, we have the roadmaps by IBM and D-Wave, which I'm following closely, and they are basically they are doing well, right? So they're following their own roadmaps that they've set themselves, which is great. They're great roadmaps, and they're following them. So there will be something, but I think we're a bit early for this right now. That's basically my view on this.
Yeah. I got a beef with QC, and I got two beefs with it. The first one, talking about what are the actual use cases, and I'm not talking about the use cases of now, because I think we all agree that it's very early and they're the early adoption. But like, even at the end of the day, what are going to be the use cases? And basically, when you look at the long list, you got a couple of stuff. And they say usual use cases are one, the use cases in pharma, because you can do in silico drug simulation. You've got one big use case, which is like cryptography, because if you use like the power of computing power of QC, you're gonna break the cryptographics and so on that you have today. And the third big thing that they talk always about is the financial sector. You can do optimization or and all that stuff.
Right.
Let's take them one by one. The pharma stuff. To be honest, today the cost of development of drugs is extremely high, and I think the average price of a drug in the US, and now the new drugs like approved by the FDA, it's above 1 million. The price for the end customer. So because you have drugs that now addresses only very specific rare disease. So yes, you can do in silico development of drugs and do the whole simulation of like the interactions on the proteins and all that stuff, but that's not going to change the problem that fundamentally we've kind of solved most of the illnesses in the world that we could solve with like cheap drugs like antibiotics and so forth, and now we're increasingly addressing very rare disease, which by definition are not like financially profitable, and it's like the community that pays for this. That's not going to change the fundamentals. You look at cryptography, same thing. It's a race to the bottom, because if they say, yeah, you need to have like QC resistance cryptography, because they're going to have hackers that are going to use QC. So that's all right, but it creates zero value for society. It's just like a race to the bottom, because so again, and the third thing is, yeah, financial sector. I mean, you have to, if you are a bit in the financial sector, you know that there are very, very few people who use anything very complex, like even the trading houses and so forth. Like nobody is generating alpha. So most of the stuff in the financial sector is a bit, yeah, we're going to allocate a really big amount of money. And the reason is, if people, the reason why there is no alpha is, yes, if you have like one person who's generating alpha, then everybody sees it and, they jump on it. And so you, above a certain volume, you're not going to have any arbitrage opportunities. And so that's my first beef. I mean, I don't know. Is there any application where it could really be a game changer? Maybe AI is one of those. I don't know if you have more computing power.
That's actually
what do you think?
Point. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And I mean, I also see like, so I agree on a few points. For example, crypto is one that I always laugh about, because crypto, yes, I mean, I see the point. In theory, quantum breaks stuff here. I think it was RSA. Which it breaks, but the thing is, we, since I don't know 20-30 years, also in theory, and well, more than theory, we already have algorithms that basically fix this, right? So it's gonna be more of a, it's already solved basically, but it's gonna be more of a process, like from an organizational point of view, where people have to move from an old algorithm in their organization to a new one, basically. So that's why I always kind of the crypto thing. I agree on this, like on another level as well, Charles. But the others, I mean, there's more to it than. So you said, for example, finance is optimization, right? And that's obviously one of the big ones, right? For quantum in general, solving optimization problems, not just, I mean, for finance and better portfolio optimization.
It's a meme. I think we all
It's a
agree
meme.
on
Yes,
that.
I think it's a
Yeah.
meme. Yeah, I can agree on that as well. That's true. I can agree on that.
I think currently the ones generating real alpha are not using technology at all. Probably, yeah.
No,
So,
Yes.
it's insider trading. So yes.
It's optimization of taxes, insider trading. Yeah, exactly.
I am, as you know, probably generally optimistic about this topic. I think what you're both saying is completely right, but I think what's always necessary, and that's probably also a little bit a link to the second topic we want to discuss. I think you need to give as much end users as possible access to this technology, and they will find a way. Yeah? So we probably have an issue right now with the computing power of the current system. So that's one. Yeah. Here we are seeing at least that the internal predictions, these roadmaps from IBM and D-Wave, are at least thought through. It seems like they can stick to it, yeah, can stick to their own predictions, which is good, which gives trust somehow that they can probably in 2 to 3 years can, be major outcomes when it comes to the computing power. Yeah? I think that's what we always talk about 2026 or something like this. But so this on this end, there should probably be light at the end of the tunnel. The second issue I see is the problem with the access. Yeah, of course, if blue chip companies whatsoever, yeah, they have budgets for all that stuff. But I think, as we all know, also real innovation usually happens in smaller companies. Yeah? And if we want to, make this tool a lever for further growth in society and whatsoever, you have to give access to everyone. And this is where what we are discussing right now, how to do that, as we see it from a process point of view. Right now, even the algorithm development to use QC sometimes takes 2 weeks or so per use case. Depends, of course, on your budget, on the availability of these scarce, very smart people as Daniel. Yeah? Probably there are not so few. Good for them, but not so good for everybody else. This is a completely manual process at this point of time, and it screams for disruption, so to say. Yeah? So that's where I think the future for QC, also in a short term, planning period, must be create access to existing systems, lower financial barriers, also, or in particular, and let's see what happens.
I think
So it's like it's the Webflow no code of QC that is needed, right, Thomas?
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Well,
That's a good
summary.
That's a good startup. That's a good startup like pitch, right?
Webflow, no code for QC. That's good.
Yeah, getting some of the sweet $500 million funding for Sandbox AQ into that project.
Oh yes.
Okay. Cool. That's a nice segue to the next topic on AI. And So everybody's talking about, of course, generative AI, and that's something there where there's been great access. And the reason everybody's talking about it is because yes, ChatGPT is a great way for everybody to try and test and tweak the prompts and do their own prompt engineering and trying to find actual use case into their job. So what do you think is going to happen? And most importantly, is there a viable business model behind it? Because I think that's the big question. Uh, who wants to start first? Maybe Daniel on that. What do you think?
Okay, so what's gonna happen, and is there a viable business? Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, what's gonna happen? Maybe I can start like this. So I've been using it for a long time at this point. Well, not a long time, but at least before it was cool. And so in like small, let's say niche applications, you can use it and get extremely cool results and like really productive results even. So where the state of the art solution is basically shit against it. So you can so that really works, and I've seen it multiple times in many like applications. Like one of them is and this is really interesting. So you've got CVs, right, as PDFs, and super unstructured. People are writing random stuff in there. And there's been a whole industry around this for like 10, 15 years. Online APIs that basically you put in the CV and you get a certain structure out of it. And those are very custom machine learning models. They've been trained for years, optimized, and it's like a huge like industry around it. And this whole industry was like broken apart in 1 second. It's insane because now I'm using GPT for exactly this task. And I didn't even have to fine tune the model, which I do at this point. I do that sometimes. And it just worked out of the box, giving me a structure out of CVs, which is absolutely amazing. So you get these, let's say, these small, like, let's call it not like tasks or use cases where you put GPT and it just works and it's amazing. Good results. You just disrupted something instantly. But I get like the question obviously is, Charles, from your side, how to build a whole business around it, because you cannot build a business with a few like small like tricks and tasks that you solve better. I get that point. So that's a really good question. You gotta find something that sits kind of is still general enough and sits on top of the GPT API basically. So one example, like really like recent, is so we've seen it a few times now. You have this so-called reverse prompt engineering, right? So you have your prompts, you define your instructions for GPT, and sometimes they're really simple, like give me a summary, and sometimes they're really complicated, and you put some thought into it. Like for example, for the CV stuff, I actually did iterate on it for a few months and did put some thought into it, right? Because there are some things to consider, and this is solving this, and it's again maybe a bit too thin for a whole business around it, but I'm just kind of throwing out ideas on how to approach this. Maybe solving it would be basically create your own API and let it sit on top of the OpenAI API. So you're still general enough that there is a whole like industry, like no, not industry, but like a whole set of companies that would use this. So you're not like restricted to some niche use case. So you're super general. It could be a whole business, but yeah, and you're solving something which makes sense, right? Obviously, for this, let's say GPT security thingy, I think it's a bit too small for its own business again. But this is the direction I would try to go to put something on top of the OpenAI API and see where you go with this.
So for you, you're still optimistic that there's applicable business model, and so
I mean, if we think about it, for example, the problem is the big players right now, Microsoft and OpenAI itself, and like all of them, Google and so on, they're moving so fast. So for example, like when this came out, a guy came to me and he told me, look, you gotta create a business around it, like for office tools. So where you can also work with Excel files, CSV files, PDFs, PowerPoints, and it all just works, right? So this is, again, if you think about it, this is again a layer above. It works with like not just text, but really like files and like stuff like this. So see, but the thing is, Microsoft, obviously they're not dumb, right? They are super fast, and they're now integrating it in the whole Office suite. So I don't know, maybe if someone was super quick and got it out in like 3 weeks. I was not quick enough, that's for sure. Maybe it could have been a business, that just works out, because you're a competitor to Microsoft now. I mean, it's tough, but this is I'm still optimistic, but the big players are moving super fast, so it's a tough one.
Got it. And Thomas, what's your view?
First of all, I find it great what happens right now. I think it is exactly what needs to happen. I think quoting the founder and CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen, who just said this, probably this is like an iPhone moment for AI, yeah? Like what ChatGPT is actually doing to the whole industry. Yeah? And why is that? As I said, I mean, that's a perfect example, and I'm hoping the same for QC. It's a technology, it's a tool. The question is how to use it in order to create value. Yeah? And I think this question is still open, but the tool is there and people are experimenting with it. People are trying it. That is what needs to happen, in my opinion. Yeah? And they find it cool, but my personal perception is also, after playing around with it a few times, the question is, where does it work best? Yeah, where are the applications? What is exactly the use cases where it really adds value? I heard about kind of people who think about building Excel add-ins, this kind of thing. I mean, everybody who does a little bit of financial modeling and all that stuff, which still happens hugely in Excel. Whoa. Yeah, this is a topic. If you could enable like non-Excel power users to build real solid, good working models, great. Yeah, so that would really be a very useful application. I mean, from your background, also probably you remember these early days. It's kind of for consultants, for people in the financial industry, but not only restricted to this area. Building good skills in Excel takes time, and if you could fasten this process, it would be very beneficial. But it's a very a very focused use case right now. But this is what I personally experienced. But yeah, exactly. So this is where I think this is the question now, where which applications, which use cases turn out to add real value. And probably if I were OpenAI, I would try to assist in this process, honestly. Yeah. I would not just throw the tool out. I mean, that's perfectly fine, but probably maybe that's their strategy. I don't know.
They set something up. They set up this fund for investing. Hold on, it's the OpenAI Startup Fund. I don't know if you heard of it. There's not much money in it. I think it's like 10 billion, but 100 million actually. Never mind. So they are, and this is super fresh. I think they released it like a week ago. So that's really cool. I think this is what you mean, right? Going into this direction, kind of helping with.
No, not exactly. I mean, of course, that helps as well. I would find it great if they give a little bit more guidance for different industries. Like having probably
showcases where they show,
Mm.
okay, look, this is how it works. I mean, that's
I see
maybe
what you mean.
that will come, but what happens right now, also if you follow conversations on LinkedIn, okay, if this is German people discussing, it's purely pessimistic, kind of whatever. They only see downsides and all that stuff. That's what we know.
Of course, the classic.
But you want to avoid these kind of discussions because people are playing around and searching for the, for the flaws. Yeah, and this is what you don't want. You want them to use it the right way. Yeah. So if I would be them, I would give certain indications. Okay, look, this is like. Probably use cases which we have testimonials there. We used it together with this something what could be done. Where I mean, basically we're talking about OpenAI strategy right now, yeah, and what happens together with Microsoft and all this stuff. Probably they try to integrate it in the Office suite, yeah, that's clear, but nobody really knows how the API works, what actually happens in the back end. And this, there's a lot of uncertainty arising around this topic. And probably this will fuel a new wave of data security, privacy kind of solutions. So this is something what I am seeing. And I think that's very interesting, and it's super important. I mean, we're talking about banning TikTok or something like this. And, on the other hand, we're letting.
But it's an American company, so it's not gonna get banned, right? That's the thing. The only issue with TikTok is that it's Chinese. So I mean, of course, the Americans will never ban one of their own company, and all other Western countries basically will be forbidden to ban it. So I'd say that's all right. No, but I think to me the biggest challenge that they have is I have no doubt that you can have like end users at an individual level doing cool stuff with it. And recently I ran a tabletop RPG with friends using ChatGPT to basically generate the scenario and the description and the dialogues and so forth. So that's kind of a very niche use case by the end user. So I can see what the benefits are. But what I struggle with is like you have OpenAI, you have the end users, everything in between probably going to get obliterated because like all those companies that did API call to OpenAI when there was not the interface of ChatGPT, there was like a ton of companies and there was like billions and like Jasper and all those companies. And then now they're a bit in trouble because people don't need to access it through the API call and like everybody can do it. Now the question is how defensible it is to build something that relies on a call to OpenAPI. And also because if you do a very common use case, we're going to do this to facilitate salespeople writing their own stuff and their sales prompt and so forth. Then well, fine. But now with ChatGPT, they can do it themselves and they don't need to go through your company. This company say, yeah, but then we have, trained models. And does it really add value? We have prompt engineering. Does it really add value? And second of all, how defensible is it from a copyright perspective? Because you do prompt engineering, but somebody can use the same prompt, right? How can you stop somebody from using instructions? You cannot say you cannot use instructions to our programs because we kind of copyrighted it.
Right.
No, it's like even in the US, I think that would fall. I mean, in Europe, it's all nothing is authorized, everything is forbidden, right? But in the US, that would fall under free speech, right? So you cannot forbid somebody to basically ask something to an AI, even if it's the exact same formulation. To me, that's going to be tough for companies to exist in between. So we're probably going to have and I think it's why everybody's competing to basically develop the AI tool, right? So while you have OpenAI and everybody's is freaking out in Europe a bit, in China a lot, of saying we need to develop our own learning models because that's where all the value lies, and all the intermediary stuff is probably going to get vaporized.
Yeah.
Good point. I think that's I have a counter question. Does it add value to have, I don't know how many of them? Yeah. But okay. I mean, we have these companies in Germany as well, in France, probably everywhere. The question is, yeah, how defensible is their business model when we see the current moves from OpenAI, Microsoft investment whatsoever? Yeah, is this are these companies dead? Yeah,
I mean,
what's happening to them?
I mean, OpenAI cannot do everything, right? Or Microsoft. So of course they're gonna do the Office integration, and it all makes sense. There's synergies there and all that, but they cannot do everything. So I mean, the example with the sales stuff, yes, but do you really want your salespeople to do prompt engineering, right? Or do you want a tool to do it for you? And yes, I get your point, though. This is a very thin thing. You're not like you're doing not much then, and that isn't really defensible in that regard. So yes, you will have to evolve a bit, but I still don't think that ChatGPT means they cease to exist, right? And also, by the way, I mean ChatGPT will cost now something, right? I don't remember the price, but it's just a monthly like $50 or something. So you still have to kind of compare and think about it, and not just say, okay, let's use ChatGPT, because it does have a certain price to it as well. So yeah, but I do agree on the defensibility. It's yeah.
Yeah, and so that leads us to our last point. Is first of all, is Europe definitely gonna lag behind? Is it like the last throw, and that means that Europe already lost basically lost the race for technology in the 2000s, right? And we're completely one behind that. And I think very interesting statistics is that there is only one big tech company in Europe in terms of valuation, and that's SAP. That's at the level of a large company, and you could even say SAP is like an Oracle in terms of, but it's not the new wave of tech. So that's the only one we probably have in Europe at that scale. So, like, is it also again it's going to be losing this race? And another subsidiary question is it going to be US only, or could there be some competition? We all see that China is freaking out, and they are heavily investing. Baidu is heavily investing with their own model called Ernie. I don't know why it has a Western name, but it's basically the ChatGPT of Baidu is called Ernie. Wonder why, but they're heavily investing into this. So, will there be like a duopoly, and can some other power emerge?
I mean, I think right now OpenAI does have a really, really good position, which they, if they play it well, can abuse, because they're getting all this data, right? All this usage from ChatGPT. I think it's worth a lot what they're getting right now in terms of data. And I think it's an uphill battle. And I actually tried out the European model. Thomas, you shared it with me, right? The LF Alpha. It's still, I guess it's still good. It's a good try, but the problem is with, and I think this is a race where kind of the winner takes it all. So if your model is not even like 1%, like if it's just basically not on the same level as OpenAI or the others, like state-of-the-art models, at least at the current stage, that's it. I won't use it, and I don't see any use for it. For example, also for OpenAI, OpenAI has multiple GPT versions, right? So there's the big one, it's called DaVinci, which I always use, and then there's smaller versions of this model as well with less parameters. And I tried them, and I never used them because the results are so much worse. There's just no incentive for me in any of my use cases that I've had so far to use a model that is not like the very highest version that I can ever get right now. So this is why either you're the best or it's kind of over. And for me right now, the only accessible model that I have that I can use commercially is OpenAI's GPT, and it's the best, so I use it, and that's all.
You know quite well about Aleph Alpha, right, Thomas? So how much did they get in funding? And how much, how well are they positioned? Do you share the pessimistic view of Daniel here?
Um,
Check as well.
it's a good question. I think the funding
27
was
billion on the Series A.
27, kind of 30 million, something like this.
Yeah.
And they have prominent investors. We're hearing a lot of, yeah, I mean, what means a lot, yeah. But I'm also regionally not far away, so probably that is the reason.
So you see their engineer crying in the train station just behind your home, right? That's what you mean.
Yeah, not really. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Um, but no, the question is, of course, I'm asking myself, what is their strategy? Yeah, where do they want? Where do they want to play? Then how do they want to play? Yeah. So that's always the question. Yeah. What's the strategy, and how do you differentiate to OpenAI? I don't know it. Yeah. I don't get it really. Honestly, if you go to their website. I don't really see it, but I also don't want to. I mean,
I mean,
it does it's not necessary that I understand it, but probably I'm a user, and if I don't understand it, probably others don't understand it well. Yeah.
I mean, they do have like something I noticed, which I found quite interesting. That's something because you just said like what's different to OpenAI, right? So
Yeah.
what they do have, and I didn't really take a look into it deeply what's behind it, right? But they do have this so-called prompt optimization or something like this. So they automatically like optimize your prompt in some way. I don't know what this means, right? I didn't actually check, but this I didn't see with OpenAI at all. But I just so that's something that they do differently right now. I just wonder if it's like a lot and if it's really something to differentiate yourself with OpenAI.
I have a clear opinion what should be done, but that is nothing that is special to this company. It's when we're looking at the bigger picture, yeah, whatever. If we want to play a significant role in this AI game and emerging technology game on a global basis, which is necessary. I think I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's not helping to throw millions and billions out of European funds on whatsoever initiatives. I think that's a waste of money. What really needs to be done, and where the incentive needs to lie, is to really increase collaboration between actual end users and technology developers. We still have an edge in engineering. We still have an edge in machine building in these kind of industries. We have leading companies in Germany, and this is absolutely clear. I don't understand why nobody is really working towards an actual collaboration roadmap, that kind of a thing. Yeah. So this is where they have all the data. Yeah. So if we always complain about being dependent on American, on Silicon Valley companies or whatsoever, they have all these lock-in effects because they have all the data. That's just pure bullshit, in my opinion. It's not true. We have the data, and if we want to, make use of it, then come together and do it. I think if this is the way to go, yeah, the end users, the corporates should not complain. They should take action and actually embrace that problem, and then we have an edge over them. Yeah, this is, in my personal opinion, I think that's the way to go. And if I would be CEO of Aleph Alpha, I would definitely, maybe he's doing it. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't know what they do. I don't know it. Yeah, maybe they're trying it and it doesn't work, but then let's make a call to all these corporates, work with those people, yeah, give them access, yeah,
Yeah, but
work
here I
together.
think I think that's where it gets tough, because and I've linked this to a news I saw, like how BASF is going to leave Germany as a production base. And I think that here is the thing. What's tough in Europe as well is that we don't necessarily have any economic patriotism and all that stuff that they kind of have in the US. So yes, European corporates are also driven by profit imperative, and in a large amount of cases, actually, they have US shareholders, which are in some cases majority shareholder or at least have a significant minority control. So they have to generate profit. So they'll take the best, as Daniel said. That's how I would do it. But yeah, maybe you want to answer to that, and then
I
I have
have,
the last point to make.
I honestly, I'm not only talking about public companies, honestly. Yeah? So where the actual backbone in Germany is there is so many family-owned businesses. Yeah, these are really they are these kind of hidden champions we have in Germany. They are world-leading companies. They have world-leading tech. They have good innovation roadmaps. But these they are sometimes a little bit conservative when it comes to these kind of initiatives. But these are public companies. Yes, of course they are important and all that. But these companies have long-term visions. They are not going for the quick buck, so to say. Yeah, and this is the companies who I have in mind. Yeah, these companies have everything. They are the end users at the end of the day. Yeah, so they need to be more open to that. That's the first thing, and we need to give them opportunities to access this technology easily in a safe way, and that's it. Yeah, if that would be done, boom. Yeah, that would be a big move. That's my call on that.
Yeah, and that was circling back to this. There's one last thing I wanted to say on that, which is for all our CCP listeners, which I know are numerous, and I want to give an idea to the great country of China and the Marxist-Leninist vision of history, which is now, if I were to be honest, if I were a Chinese company, if I were like even a Chinese state, the one thing I would do to kind of really disadvantage, yes, to upset the AI race, basically, it does, but really in the open. So I would say, we've built our own model, and it's like completely free, and it will be free forever, and we don't care, because then you would kind of really upset OpenAI. They will get less data, and that might be, I think, the only way. Even happen in the US, right? If you have a company with very deep pockets, and I think like Google is a bit screwed with OpenAI. So if they really want to do, because now it's owned by Microsoft at 50%, and the other 50% are private investors. So Google has no part in it. If I'm not saying anything wrong.
Yeah.
So then, even in the US, if I were Google, I would say, because OpenAI costs what, 10 billion? Yeah, what's 10 billion for Google? They probably invest 10 billion in all their bullshit, like other bets stuff,
Right.
which like moonshot, whatever, which never worked. So I would say, put 10 billion just into that, and it will be free forever. And we don't care. That we just screw Microsoft, basically.
Something, Facebook did something similar, right? They released, but the thing is, you cannot use it commercially. That's the big problem with Facebook. But Facebook released a huge model which has a similar amount of parameters. It's called like OPT, opt, and then it has different sizes. I didn't like check it deeply. I did like one or two small tests, but also with the smaller models because I couldn't host the big ones on my laptop. And but yeah, again, the thing is, it's open source and you cannot use it commercially. So it's good for like research and academics and just kind of like throwing it out there, but it's not gonna see wide use. This is why I wanted to use it and host it myself and kind of get around this whole OpenAI ecosystem and paying for OpenAI. But I decided against it because you're not allowed legally to use it commercially.
They should do it for free. They should build like the
Yes.
limits of.
Yeah.
They should just. They shouldn't just to screw up on AI. Because at this point, I think anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's already open source, so you might as well make it free at this point.
Okay, I think it sums up quite nicely. I'm not sure if there are any definitive conclusion on any of those topics, but certainly interesting to follow both. I think there's a nice parallelism if you look back at it between QC, which has very, as Thomas you mentioned, right, very little access, but very strong long-term potential, but hard to find the actual use cases, and OpenAI, which is basically generative AI has now really exploded because there's a lot of access, which weren't there even like 1 or 2 years ago. Even though you could use OpenAI 2 years ago, and you could use the version of GPT and so forth, and but there was no access, and that really shows how access has been really the key for this game.
Cool.